When a 14-year-old girl went missing, detectives would soon uncover what was considered Britain's first grooming gang scandal. But before we get started, welcome to True Crime with me, Anita. If you love all things true crime, including missing person cases, cold cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. If you would like to show your support, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss video upload. Let's get started. Blackpool is considered a seaside resort in Lancashire, England. Unfortunately, Blackpool is the most dangerous major town in Lancashire and is considered the most dangerous overall. The overall crime rate in Blackpool in 2021 was 146 crimes per 1,000 people. Charlene Downes and her family were residents of Blackpool. Charlene was a 14-year-old girl when she was reported missing from her home on November 3rd, 2003. I do want to note that the timeline for this case is really quite messy. Detectives are only able to piece together bit by bit because at the time, Charlene's friends were very hesitant to talk to police. So they had a lot of statements, but some of them just really didn't coincide with what they knew, and things just didn't add up. So they really only have this kind of general timeline that they can go off of. Although many people describe Charlene as, quote, well and happy, her lifestyle was a bit more chaotic than that. She had been expelled from school on numerous occasions. From what I understand, it seems that Charlene had a lot of freedom for a 14-year-old girl. She was very much allowed to go out with her friends and kind of stay out quite late. It appears that her parents had no idea what was happening to the young girl every time she left her house. On that day in November, at around 6:45 p.m. that evening, Charlene and her sister walked up Church Street where their mother was handing out leaflets, and they just stopped by to say hello. As the mother and her two daughters are chatting, Charlene's sister decided to head home for the evening. Charlene would then call some friends in the phone box and meet up with them before saying goodbye to her mother. The girls would head off in a different direction, and Charlene stayed with them for a short amount of time before leaving them. And it appears that nobody knows what Charlene did for the next hour or so, but detectives know that she did meet up with another friend. Detectives would find CCTV footage that shows Charlene with her sister at the town center at around 3:25 p.m. on the afternoon of Saturday, November 1st, 2003. It appears the pair are walking towards the Coral Island Amusement Arcade. Shortly after that, images were captured of Charlene returning home, but she would go back out into Blackpool Town Center later that evening. Although detectives weren't positive about Charlene's movements, only what they had on CCTV footage, they would talk to her friends, but her friends were very hesitant to talk. It was reported that around 9:30 p.m. on that evening, Charlene and her friend went to the Carousel Bar on the Northern Pier. They wouldn't stay long and head back to the town center before parting ways at around 11 p.m. And it seems like nobody knows what happened to her from that point forward. Soon, detectives would start searching for Charlene. She had been missing, her family finally filed a missing persons report, and suddenly they would uncover something completely horrendous. Detectives would soon come across two suspects. Mohammed Ravashi and his business partner were one of two takeaway shop owners suspected of being involved in the disappearance of Charlene Downes. Interestingly enough, when Muhammad was asked if he knew anything about Charlene's disappearance, he would go on to say, "I don't have any clue about what you're talking about. I don't care whether she's alive or dead. I couldn't give a toss, to be honest. As far as I'm concerned, I've never come across her. I do not know her, I could not recognize her, and I've never seen her in my life." The thing is, police labeled Muhammad as a dangerous man. Detective Don Fraser was a neighbor of Muhammad. The pair seemed to be friendly enough until one incident made Don question everything he knew about his seemingly nice neighbor. Detective Don Fraser would go on to say, "You would have to believe coincidence after coincidence to give Muhammad credibility. I think he's a dangerous man, extremely clever, manipulative, and extremely wealthy now. He had two 9-year-old girls in the back bedroom on the ground floor of his house, and they watched soft porn. He admitted this to police officers and said it was an accident, that the girls put it on while he was in the loo. Muhammad would tell me it was a mistake, but I didn't believe him. I was appalled." And then shortly after, he applied to become a foster parent. When asked why he would try to become a foster parent, Muhammad would say that he wanted to be helpful and then would shame others who suspected that he must have been sleeping with the teenagers he fostered. He would go on to say, "I didn't even sit next to them. If they were on a sofa, I was on the other chair." The thing is, in home videos, Muhammad can be seen telling the girls that they have beautiful legs and saying, "I love you." It also appears that he's cuddling the girls, and getting quite close to them. Eventually, a rumor would get started that Charlene was a victim of this suspect. Someone had caught Muhammad in bed with 3 little girls, and one of them happened to be Charlene. And this is where the kebab theory came to life. Rumors would begin to surface that Muhammad had murdered Charlene. He then grinded her up and put her in kebab meat, which he sold to customers. Once detectives learned of this, they became incredibly interested in what was happening in Muhammad's house. They would put hidden cameras and microphones in his house. And when they went there, they did find blood. When they found this blood, Muhammad would claim that it belonged to his foster son's girlfriend. But police would soon realize there was quite a few modifications to the house. This included new floorboards and trim. A local businessman named David Cassidy would contact the police after hearing this rumor, and that's how they became involved. David Cassidy would go on to say, "I'd hear rumors of Muhammad and girls getting in his van and not being seen until the next day. I'd also been told he'd been seen with 3 young girls in bed. One was 12 at the time, and one was Charlene Downes. She had apparently had enough and was going to go to the police. Apparently that was what triggered something in their heads." Charlene ended up in Al-Batiki's room, that was Muhammad's business partner, who helped dispose of the body. He said he's seen 6 black bags and he knew the girl was in them. So of course, once police hear this information that perhaps Muhammad and his business partner murdered and disposed of Charlene, they spring into action, and they would while both men were at the police station being questioned because of the claims made against them, a team would head to their homes and install surveillance in their homes and their cars. Upon hearing the tapes, they would realize that the men had been making reference to the missing teens, and it appears that the recordings start as soon as the 2 men left the police station. One of the detectives would go on to say, "In the first few tapes, clearly they were shocked and worried and panicking. The first thing they started talking about is the murder inquiry." In one of the recordings, she said that she believes she can hear Muhammad say, "I can't cope, I'm so worried, and you are the one who fucking killed her." According to an internal police report, Charlene Downes was one of 60 girls in Blackpool, some as young as 11, who had been groomed by men to carry out sex acts. In exchange for these sex acts, the girls would be given food and cigarettes and even money by men of fast food outlets in the area. Charlene's mother would go on to say, "When Charlene went missing, it was horrendous. I kept on thinking she would turn up, that she was just pushing the boundaries and testing my patience. I never for a moment believed I would never see her again, that she had been lured into a gang and groomed for sex. Looking back though, there were clues there, and I just didn't see them. Now I want other mothers to learn from my tragedy." Although Charlene was described normally as quiet and shy, Karen Downes would say that her daughter began to rebel in the months before she disappeared. She would go on to say, "She'd always been a very affectionate, loving little girl, but she started to get cheeky and moody and misbehaving." After hearing the kebab theory, Karen would say, "It was horrific to listen to. As a mother, it almost broke me. There were reports that Charlene had been groomed and drawn into a sex trade, which broke my heart. My daughter wasn't here to speak up for herself, so it seemed people could say just what they like. But when I looked back, there were occasions when Charlene had skipped school, and I didn't know where she had been. She once came home with €70 and we couldn't get the truth out of her. We didn't know where it had come from. She had cigarettes too, and we didn't know who was buying them for her. Now it was all slotting into place. Deep down, I have to accept that my darling daughter is dead, but without a body, I will always have a glimmer of hope. I will never stop fighting for the truth. If anything positive comes from this, I would like to help other families. I want other mothers to be aware of the signs of grooming, to spot them and act on them before it's too late." These 2 men would face trial in May of 2007, but the jury failed to reach a verdict. A retrial was ordered, but prior to the start of the trial in April of 2008, the prosecution identified a number of issues with the evidence. So basically, the men would go free. Although this case is about 19 years old, they're still working on it. The detective on the case would go on to say, "We remain committed to finding Charlene's killers and her body despite it being more than 15 years since she went missing. A $100,000 reward remains on an offer for information leading to the conviction of her killers or recovery of her body. We will continue to not only focus on her disappearance and murder, but also the wider issue of child sexual exploitation in Blackpool, for which we have now secured a number of successful convictions. I would encourage anyone who knows anything about Charlene's disappearance and death to come forward and speak to us. Similarly, if you have been a victim of abuse, please speak to the police. We will listen to you, we will support you, and bring offenders to justice." Although a man was arrested arrested on suspicion of Charlene's murder in August 2017. He is no longer under investigation. The tapes in this case for the primary suspects are often disputed because they're not great quality. So although detectives listened to them and made a transcript, many people don't believe that this is enough evidence. They aren't clear. It's not clear what these people are saying, so many people don't believe it can really be used as evidence. Friends would talk about Charlene, and one of her best friends from that time, Martin, would go on to say, she was really caring until she was 12 or 13. Then her eyes changed. It was like she was gone, just trying to make it all go away. She'd go into these kebab shops for 20 minutes or so and come back with cigarettes, alcohol, or money for the arcades. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Charlene was my soulmate. If she was around now, we'd be married with kids. When alcohol and cigarettes started being given, I asked her to come with me. She said no, so I went home, and I never saw her again. This case is baffling for so many reasons. This little 14-year-old girl was just roaming the streets, apparently at all times of the night. I mean, she was out till 11 p.m. and that was seemingly normal. And people would begin to notice these changes in Charlene, that she seemed to be testing the waters, that her personality was changing, and nobody did anything about it. I think it's incredibly concerning that a 14-year-old child comes home with 70 euros and won't tell you where she got it from. I feel like that is a significant red flag. I also believe this investigation was quite botched. There was blood found in the primary suspect's home, but it doesn't seem that they collected it and sent it for DNA testing. I'm genuinely shocked that a man who was known to have young girls around him and was caught watching quote-unquote soft porn with them or in bed with them was allowed to become a foster parent. I have no doubt that he was abusing any little girl that he came in contact with. Although I've listened to some of the tapes, the quality isn't great. It does seem like we can make out what they're saying, but again, because of the quality, I'm not sure. I do think that the kebab theory is plausible. I mean, they had the machinery. They needed to get rid of a body, so did they do that? Perhaps. Did they just murder Charlene and take her body elsewhere? Possibly. But I would love to know your thoughts on this case. What happened to Charlene? But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video and want to support the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. If there's a case you'd like me to cover, pop in the comments below and I'll be sure to get to it. In the meantime, check out some other videos on my channel while you wait for the next upload, and I'll see you then.